Hello and welcome to Reviews. As always, I'm Plume Noir, and Butters had joined us, and then she decided to wander off. That's not usually like her. Anyway, here we have two in a row. And by two in a row, I mean Leah Williams. I did Gwenpool Strikes Back number 4 last night, and today is can't talk tonight. The Amazing Mary Jane number 2. What I noticed interesting is this issue put the full names on the cover. Gwenpool only had the last names, and I know they do that a lot, just as Williams or whatever. But for some reason, this one they put the full name. I don't know if maybe because we have a lot of common names here, maybe. So maybe just to clear things up. So I don't know, just something interesting I noticed. Now, I really liked the first issue of this book. And the second issue, I'm going to say I enjoyed. Um, Now, I don't think this book is everyone's cup of tea. Um, Now, Mary Jane is, I'm a Mary Jane fan. That's who she should, when it comes to Spider-Man women, it's Mary Jane. It's not Gwen Stacy. Um, Especially if you've read the older issues, back when it was Ditko and Stan Lee. Gwen Stacy was kind of a bitch. Um, then they warmed her up and then killed her. So hey, it all works out, right? I don't know where I was going with that, really. I just really like Mary Jane, and I thought it was so weird that Casado was really trying to push her out and get her out of the picture, and even Dan Slott was trying to. And anyway, the less spoken of that, the better. Now, this series, if you haven't seen the previous video, um, Mysterio is making a movie about his life, and basically he's trying to make something good. Something he'll be remembered for. Um, because he was a special effects guy in the movie industry, is what his origin is about. And then he ended up using his abilities to commit crime, is basically what it comes down to. And he wears a fishbowl on his head, which is pretty awesome. Um, Maybe not as cool as this Spider-Man Far From Home Mysterio, but I've always had a soft spot for the character, and he's just one of those looks that I always thought was goofy enough to work in comics, but not in real life, but actually looked good in that movie. So I'm glad to see because of that movie, he's getting some love. We had the Symbiote Spider-Man series with Peter David, and now we have this. And this book is not so much the Amazing Mary Jane. It is pretty much Mary Jane and Mysterio, because this issue is more about Mysterio than Mary Jane. Um, she basically is the catalyst that fixes things. Granted, um, here are the credits here. VC's joke. Come on. Anyway, I just happened to notice the VCs. It kind of reminds me of the old school Mystery Science Theater TV's Frank. Anyway, I am going to read this here because it is kind of important. MJ decided to keep Quentin's secret because he's pretending to be a famous director called Cage McKnight, which is such a goofy name. But she doesn't know yet the film's attracted the attention of Mysterio's old crony Vulture and his gang, the Savage Six. Now, one problem about this is to have this in the opening. The Vulture and the Savage Six, Rhino and everyone, they don't show up till the last couple pages. So, I'm not going to be showing that, so I'm just telling you that right now. If you're looking forward to the showdown with that in this issue, now my cats are running around. If you're looking forward to that in this issue, it doesn't happen. Basically, this issue is about the movie that Mysterio is making losing funding, and the backers had pulled out, and now they have to try and get more money. That is legitimately what this issue is about. And you're probably thinking, what? No, it is actually pretty enjoyable. It starts off with Mary Jane doing a role from the movie, her character. As you know, she did convince Mysterio to change her character a bit, um, to not just be a typical, uh, inspiration for the main character. Um, so she's convinced Mysterio to flesh out her character a bit, and you get to see that. Um, and here's where we have the problem with the losing money. The rental company has come and has taken back all the equipment because Quentin hasn't been able to pay them because the budget has been slashed. And it's nice to see they're actually drawing women like this again. You know, I don't think American artists are allowed to do this anymore. Um, Gomez and Lopez, the two Carlos. Is the plural of Carlos Carly? Not even getting into that. Um, it's nice to see that. I don't know. Maybe the two Carlos are in America. I'm just assuming. But Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones is not drawing art like this anymore in main Marvel books. I notice it seems to be mostly the how can I say this? I don't want to sound offensive, but the more like Hispanic names. Maybe it's something with that fiery Latin, blood or whatever. That good on them. I'm glad they can get away with it still. I went completely off on a tangent. So they're trying to stop the equipment being from being taken away, but they're out of money. Quentin is about to lose everything. This is his dream. And we have Mary Jane, she is being a heroine. Um, we're still only a days behind production schedule. That's not bad. Mary Jane, we have no money. Now, this is Mysterio. He's in his Cage McKnight disguise as the director. Um, so, this is Hollywood. We'll just go find more. Now, this book is if you're not really into how movies are made or know like how they get funded and executive producers and all that, I'm not going to go into all that. Uh, this may seem a little bit boring. However, it's still actually really enjoyable. Um, the character of Mysterio as Cage playing against uber competent Mary Jane, who is pretty much all smiles, but basically doing all the smooth talking. It's really enjoyable. Um, he's sitting here talking about how they have to slum in Burbank where they film television, and she's still being the optimist. You're making it sound worse than it is. This is just the price we pay for trying to do something new. There are no existing roads to prove we aren't a financial risk. Besides, Cage, isn't it better for us to find the right investor who's excited about the project instead of lying about it just to get them to give you the money like you did the first time? So Mysterio has a temper tantrum and starts conjuring, all these, basically the Savage Six, and she tells him, "Whoa, whoa, calm down," you know, because at the end of his biopic pick, you know, Mysterio was hoping, as Mary Jane says, you thought they would forgive you, and he agrees with this. So Mary Jane, has him. They're going to go out to one last, uh, one last possible financer, and as it's being pointed out that Cage McKnight, the real Cage McKnight director, is a very quiet guy, whereas Quentin is having temper tantrums, and that word's getting around. People think that Cage McKnight, Cage McKnight has turned to drugs. So basically, they do find a financer. Mary Jane convinces Quentin to play Cage a little bit differently. Instead of, Quentin wasn't even trying to act like Cage. He was just imitating what he looked like. So now she tries to turn him more into a bad boy by changing his sunglasses. And so they do get financing. I'm going to stop right here with a, kind of shady guy who is a like used car salesman, that owns a used car lot, and but now they have a fraction of the budget they used to have. They have an indie film budget now, and so now they're going to have to make that work. But thankfully, things kind of work out in their favor. They would lose one of their stars, and Quentin is going to have to play himself. So, one thing is that Mary Jane does suggest that they use his illusions instead of the practical effects, which would help on the budget. Um, and she says, why not just use illusions to make the movie? Which is something, in here for the reader, because we're all probably wondering the same thing. Illusions aren't real, Mary Jane. The budget is for practical effects. Which really isn't much of an answer. I feel like they could have said something like, well, with the camera lighting, it messes up the illusion, people see through the smoke, or, something like that. I feel like they could have gone with a little bit of a better answer as to why he doesn't just use the illusions, these holograms and everything he does. Say it has to do with the lighting and the cameras. It doesn't, it doesn't fool them. It would work as well. So anyway, I'm just going to stop there. This book, I'm enjoying it. It really goes. It really goes back to what I was saying last night with Gwenpool Strikes Back. She did the scene with the different Gwenpools and pointed out, the problems of Marvel. But that series has been bad since issue 1. My furnace just kicked on and some dust went by. This book is, and now my cats are fighting. What the hell is going on tonight? This issue is good. The first issue is good. I think this issue is good as well. Leah Williams is an odd person. And I say this because comparing this to what I've been reading in Gwenpool Strikes Back is bad. It sucks. It tries too hard to be, hello kids, hello fellow kids, how are you doing? This book, however, focuses on the characters, and it's showing how they interact, how they're solving problems, the different methods that they would go about trying to solve the problem. Quentin is, falling apart. This is his dream. Mary Jane is basically taking over to get it done. And I really like the way they're playing off the two of them. I didn't think I would say this, but you could say that not much happens in this issue, and you'd be true. There's not a lot of action. The last couple pages, there's still, the Savage Six finally show up, but this is more the characters' interaction, and now the cats are going to play with their toys. Surprisingly, though, they're not jumping up here. It's the two of them interacting with one another, trying to just get the movie made, get the budget, and it doesn't sound like it'd be interesting to read, especially if you're someone who's not really into the into the behind the scenes in Hollywood. If you don't care how things are financed or that sort of thing, you may not find this as interesting, but it's not going into exactly how it gets financed. It's how they go about talking to who they need to talk. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm enjoying this book. I wasn't sure if that first issue was going to be a fluke, but I'm enjoying this issue as well. Something still seems a little off. Something about Mary Jane feels off, though. I'm not sure if there was something with her role. She ends up like a Stepford Smiler quite a bit of the time. And the art, I really like the art in this book. Yes, that's what I mean. Goofy little poses like this. But I think the art is, when it's a little bit like over the top like this, still fits. Because Quentin, Mysterio, I hit the phone, he is over the top. And it fits. The coloring is actually pretty good. A lot of books have been going really dark, but since this is a movie taking place on the West Coast, the scene of where they're shooting against the backdrop versus behind the scenes, The coloring works well, and I don't point out coloring enough, and I really should. Um, Overall, this book is genuinely nice to look at, which sounds like faint praise, but I actually genuinely mean that. Um, the way she's sitting there just kind of reminds me, I don't know, something about the way she's sitting there just reminds me of something, but I can't put my finger on it. Um, this isn't so much Mary Jane's book as it is Mary Jane and Mysterio, and I like it that way. I'm going to be honest, I like the book this way. And so, what would I rate this? I'm going to go 2 o'clock on this. I think I gave Gwenpool. Did I go as high as a 2 o'clock yesterday? I'm not so sure if I should have. Um, but this issue, I will go 2 o'clock. I'm enjoying this. It may not be as actiony as some people would like, but the book is titled Mary Jane. She doesn't have powers. She could hold her own in a fight. But not for long. Let's be honest, she is. In the superpowered world, she is just a regular person. So she has to get by with her brains and, let's be honest, her looks. And I'm glad that they're not shying away from that. We are seeing a buxom redhead yawning, which, that's an ugly yawn. And it's nice to see, that they actually, some people, not everyone is perfectly, beautiful all the time. So, but like I was saying, she uses her sex appeal to slow things down. Now, this character here, what did they say her name was? Allison. I think she's like Mysterio's right hand person on this project. I don't remember her in the first book. Maybe I have to go reread that. But um, she and Mary Jane hop on the chair together to keep it from being repossessed. Maybe it's Mallory. Maybe her name's Mallory. Um, but yeah, she is using, everything she has, her brains, her beauty, to help move things along, and not in the Me Too kind of way. So yeah, 2 o'clock. It looks more like 1, but it's more like 2 o'clock. You know what? 1:30. I'm gonna up my rating on this because the more I read it, the more I like it. Um, so yeah, I would definitely recommend picking up this book. I don't recommend picking up Gwenpool, but this one I do recommend. And again, it's Leah Williams. And comparing these two, reading them as I've done, the first one last night and then this one, a day apart, feels like two completely different writers. Gwenpool has felt forced, and everything in that book has felt forced, not just her character. This one doesn't. The characters feel natural. They feel human. I think I think Leah Williams may be a better writer than she gets credit for, or she could be one of those writers that is very, hit and miss. And in this one, she's hitting. So, but then again, busty redhead, she knows what she's talking about. Although I don't think she's a redhead anymore. I wouldn't know. I'm not allowed to follow her on Twitter, and yes, I'm going to keep bringing that up. So anyway, as always, I didn't mean to talk this long. I just kind of got on a roll. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.